So for this part of the tutorial, we'll try to emulate a neuron on a dish in vitro. First off, we should sculpt the cell body some more to make it more organic, because right now it's pretty spherical. So as before, right click, paint, and sculpt. Just using the different brushes here, just to push the mesh in or smooth it out. Just going to fast forward a little bit. And it's kind of slow, so I'm turning off the geometry for the dendritic spines for now. Alright, it's much faster. So fast. So yeah, you can just sculpt it in any way you want. And I think that looks good enough for our purposes. I'm turning, see, okay. Alright, the next step is to give it a shader. I'm going to use a far off shader, which is kind of like a Fresnel shader. Let's go to the hypershade and let's look for the sample info node and the ramp, and finally the surface shader. Alright, so just right click here on the output of the sampler info, select facing ratio, and then drag it to the input of ramp. Just go to other and choose V coord. So you will have to select facing ratio on the left and V coord on the right. And from the ramp, you would want to choose the out color, and connect it to the out color of the surface shader. Let's see. There you go. And out color on the right. Alright, it's the default setting of the ramp is kind of just the primary colors. Just turn off some things here. Then I need to apply the shader to the object, so just right click on your mesh and assign surface shader. You can't really see anything right now, but that should be okay. Alright, I need to delete the history of this object. There's way too many history there. There's nothing here. Okay, I need to change it in the ramp. See. So I'm just changing the color on the top to be black and on the bottom to be white. And you can see its effect in the hyper shader here. There's a sample of it. Let's test it out in render. So that's more or less what we want to have. Let's see if it will look better in when you zoom out from the top view. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Let's save the file so that we can use it in After Effects. Just change it to TIFF so that the information is there, it's not too compressed. Okay, that's it. Let's open up After Effects And I'm just dragging my neuron render file into the project. Where is it? Into the project panel. Just going to reset my workspace here. There you go. Alright, so just drag your neuron render file into your workspace. And that would create a new composition as well. Let's change the background of your composition so you can see what you're doing. I'm just going to give it a light gray here. There you go. Let's add a solid layer, and I'm going to add some effect to this layer. Let's name it background, and just go select the layer and go to effect, noise and grain, and fractal noise. Looks pretty cloudy right now. For the fractal type, just change it to, let's see, swirly, inverted, and I'm going to turn down the contrast a little bit to 16, and maybe the opacity a little bit too. Okay, so that is not too contrasted. Alright, so next, just select your layer for your neuron and go to Effect, Noise and Grain, Noise. Just going to zoom in a little bit. For the amount of noise, just try out 10%. Looks pretty good. And go back to Effects. Go to Color Correction, Brightness and Contrast. And let's turn down the contrast a little bit. To -50. And you can add the turbulent displays here, just to give your neuron a more randomized appearance if you want. So I'm just turning it on and off. You don't really need it, but just so you know, if you want to randomize your different neurons later on, you can add this turbulent displays effect. So I have it turned off for now. So just right click on your layer again and go to the layer styles, and I added the inner glow, changing the glow color to white, and just have the source of the glow from the center. I turned out the opacity of the glow a little bit. Some more. So most of this is just playing around with the value to see what you can get out of it, if it's close to your reference image or not. So I'm just changing the range here and the size of the glow. I think that looks okay. That's it for our neuron layer. Let's add some nucleus to the neuron. So to create a new shape layer, you can just go to layer in the top menu and go to shape layer. And I'm drawing an ellipse in the center of the cell body. Just going to make it a little bit gray. And then right click on your shape layer, go to layer styles again, and inner glow. So here we're just adding some noise to the glow as well, like before. just changing the color of the glow to white. Let's see. Adding some noise to it. It's a little bit laggy here since I'm zoomed at 400%. But yeah, you can see I'm just playing around with the values here, just changing the different attributes here. So you don't want your nucleus to be too bright. It may lower the glow a little bit. Just go back to your layer styles and add a bevel and emboss. This would make your nucleus more or less more three-dimensional as viewed from the top. And I'm turning up the bevel and emboss size to 30. It's kind of conspicuous right now, but don't worry about it too much. That's it. So you may want to lower the opacity of your nucleus layer. Multiply. So when you multiply to your nucleus layer, it takes on the noise on the bottom as well. And I turn it down to 25% opacity. Just turn it back to 50. Yeah, I'm sorry I keep on jumping around. Pretty much it's just like painting. Pretty much you just have to step back, look at it, add some colors or some effects, and keep on changing things. I'm just renaming this to nucleus so that we know what they are. And I'm duplicating the layer just so that just because we have the shape already drawn in right there at the location we want, and I'm going to use this to add a halo around your cell body. So I'm just adding a outer glow layer style. So I'm just moving the halo and the nucleus shape layers to be underneath the neuron layer, and just going to lower the opacity of the neuron layer just a tiny bit, so they can see a hint of the nucleus, while the halo can glow in the back without interfering with the appearance of the neuron on top. Okay, let's try to dial it up the size. So the glow is not showing up that clearly because the background is kind of bright. What I just did was just to change the background color to a darker gray. And hopefully the glow of the halo should show up some more, but it's not doing too well. Let's see. Track up the range a little bit. It's gonna lag it. It's a little bit laggy right now, so I'm turning down the resolution to a quarter. Yeah, I don't exactly remember which ones of these parameters that I changed before, so I'm just playing around with them all. There you go. So just play around with these three parameters: the spread, size, and the range of your glow. That looks pretty good. There's a sort of halo glow around it, especially at 100%. It may be a little bit too much, but you get the idea. I'm just going to move on now. Let me change it a little bit some more. Okay. So I'm selecting all the layers that we worked before and pre-compose it, just so that we can manipulate a bunch of, so that we can add more neurons onto the dish here. So what I'm doing right now is just rotating the pre-com layer, and just to make it more random, a little bit random. Before we continue, I think I'll show you some of the visual references that I used to model the neuron. So here you can see the halo around the neuron body, especially the cell body right there. And and the background is gray, as you saw earlier. And here you see some cell debris and other kind of random artifacts in the view. So we're going to add some of these artifacts onto your scene. So I did this in Photoshop. It's pretty much just random dots. It's pretty easy to do, just random black dots. So I drag that file into After Effects, into our project manager here, and let's add it to your scene. Alright, just rearranging the layer to be on top of everything, since they are floating on top of the neurons, more or less. I may want to turn down the background a little bit, because as we saw earlier, it's pretty much it's a lot darker than what we have here. So let's change it to make it a darker gray. Yeah, so now the halo around the cells is a lot brighter than and much thicker than what we had in mind, but it's okay. You can change it later if you want. I'm also resizing the background layer just so that the fractal noise is not too obvious here. Okay, let's go back to our debris layer styles. Let's go to Afterglow. Yeah, so a lot of this is pretty much just playing with the layer style, and it's just adding outer glow and inner glow, and throwing some noise here and there. I think you can just, if you want, you can just copy and paste the layer style from your neuron layer on top of the debris layer. But just to show you what I have done here, just changing the different parameters again. Just adding some noise. Yeah, so the noise is what that is what stood out the most in my visual references, and I think this, it shows that there are cellular organelles inside your cells or cell debris. Okay, I just duplicated the debris layer, and let's resize it a little bit just to make it seem like some debris are floating much closer to your microscope view piece. And let me blur it out a little bit and turn down the opacity so that's not too in your face. Okay, that's pretty much it. Again, if you like, you can just go back and change the glow and the noise of any of these layers.